Hey tankers, and welcome back to Berlin in the Kampfpanzer 7 RH. This is World of Tanks with PR154, and thanks for joining. This is the second last game that I played with this particular tank while I was reviewing it as part of the Crystal Challenge Marathon. Basically all the community contributors that were interested would have this tank on a rental, and that would give us the opportunity to play the tank, let players know our thoughts, and then they could then form a view that if they were going to do the marathon, well, what was awaiting them at the end of it all. And so we have this brilliant Tier 8 premium German tank, and as I was going through it afterwards, I found a couple of pieces of gold, specifically that I was able to knock over the honours condition for Bloc 15 for the Excalibur. That's one of the personal missions that sort of ultimately leads towards the Object 279 early, but we are not quite there yet. This was a mission I genuinely struggled with, however, so it was very pleasing to sort of go back and find this particular result. So I'll share that with you here today in case that is one that you're struggling with too, and you're looking for the right vehicles and the right sort of situations to try to meet these conditions. So we reviewed this tank in a lot more detail previously, so I'll just try to focus more on the gameplay decisions here for now. We have set up in the field because the camouflage rating on this tank is quite good compared to other sort of sneaky, snipey sort of medium tanks. In fact, we've put a low noise exhaust on this one as well that accompanies a full camo crew, and just trying to boost those credentials. Having said that, it's still generally not enough to be able to outspot light tanks. You still have a 390 meter base view range that you can augment with optics as far as you dare, but when you don't know exactly where the enemy light tanks are, it's going to be quite difficult to sort of play as a surrogate scout. Fortunately, the enemy lights appear to be doing not a bad job of exposing themselves at the moment. But talking of bad jobs, there is some very questionable map deployment on our team here. There weren't a hell of a lot of vehicles that were in the city here. In fact, we've got our AE Phase 1, or we don't have an AE Phase 1 now, and the ISU 152K. Inexplicably, we had a Lerva and an IS-3A that were contesting the field, which is very much a square peg in a round hole, and puts us in quite a perilous position there. Potentially we could be losing sort of 75% map control, which is a great way to lose a game. So we know we need to get back there, but yeah, there's a enemy Kampfpanzer, enemy Jagdpanzer 105 that's still hanging around, so we'll try and knock that out along the way. So heading back to the city with all due haste, we have a highly outnumbered ISU 152K there who's doing his level best to stay alive. He's up against it though. He's got an enemy Conqueror. What else is there? An IS-32 and a 122 TM. We've managed to get a shot into the Conqueror, 2 shots into the Conqueror, and he's looking at us now. And no, we don't get shot at there. They have directed their attention to the ISU 152, I'd expect, so we continue to move closer and try to close the gap and recover that territory. There are 3 enemy tanks in there that we know about now, between the T-32, the Conqueror, and the 122 TM. The Conqueror's on a fairly low hit point position, but we see a more advantageous penetrable armor face on the T-32 at the moment. So we put a couple of shells in its general direction, and it ducks behind hard cover. The Conqueror takes a hit from the Shah Future 4, and then we land the killing shot. Moving around, we want to try to flank the T-32. Hopefully the Stravis 1 moves up to support us. Not necessary. We bounce a shot from the T-32, which something you can't really count on this tank. The armor profile's a little bit questionable. But what you can count on is the damage per minute of this tank. You're lobbing a 200 hit point 90mm shell every 4.8 seconds, which gives you a base DPM of 2,500, and that can of course be improved with decent crews and gun rammers and all those good things. So you can often find yourselves in situations where, you know, if you've got a decent amount of hit points behind you and you only have maybe 2 or 3 shots to take out the enemy, you'll probably only take, you know, 1 or 2 shots in return. So don't be afraid to press that advantage as and when it presents. Fortunately, the spirit of teamwork is sort of aligned behind us, and we have the Shah Future 4, the CS-59, the IS-3A all sort of pushing through the city to try to take out these enemy tanks one by one with overwhelming force. And you, as soon as you create these little situational outnumberings of enemy tanks, it really impacts on their ability to use violence against you when you can use double or triple the amount of violence against them. So we are just trying to screen the A0, B0 sectors. This is a popular hangout for a lot of SPGs, but I expect that particular SPG has seen the writing on the wall and vacated the area once we started clearing the city. It appears to be, I can't really tell from it looks like one of those Bachatillon artillery pieces, which well, they're somewhat known for their mobility, so I dare say given the opportunity to move they would have done so. So we're coming below E and F line. We now control 75% of the map, and we're able to tighten the noose on the enemy. They have 3 tank destroyers left, so our ability to spot those tank destroyers is going to be quite crucial for our ability to win this now. We've been able to identify the Rheinmetall Borsig, which has horrendous destructive potential with that 15-centimeter gun. So we know we can take a hit from it, but just because we can doesn't mean we should. We've been able to get eyes on the Waffenträger auf Panzer IV. In hindsight, I probably should have used a bit more high explosive there. That probably would have been the better shell for that situation, but at that point in time we were really just concerned with consistent damage. I notice my shell tracers aren't working terribly effectively, but this is a somewhat outdated version that I'm trying to play the replay on, so that might have glitched a few things. Very dangerous moment here, staring down the barrel of a GSAW 1008 who's probably completely loaded, but they appear to have dumped that entire clip in our general direction. They've ducked back under cover. We can't seem to penetrate it or draw a bead on it, so if it is reloading we have to kind of act fast. If one of those suckers pulls away and you have the opportunity to knock it out, then try to do so, because if you give it another 40 to 45 seconds to reload, you're going to have to go through the whole abusive process again, and those things are just absolute killing machines. So we are able to find that Batchat artillery piece, and we do have the high explosive shells loaded this time around, but our friendly Shah Future 4 ends up sending him back to the garage on this particular occasion. And so the hunt is on for the enemy T-54 lightweight. I'll speed this up for your benefit. We don't really want to take a blow-by-blow account of a fishing expedition. We just want to know how big the fish we caught. Searching. Shah Future 4 is looking in another flank, though it's not really well suited to get into a brawl with that thing. As there we are, we're at the right speed now. Now, I had a bad experience in a previous match with this tank where I could only see turret on it, and I was just bouncing off with the standard round. So I have switched up to the gold rounds for this endgame phase, just for expediency's sake, really. I don't need to play too aggressively with it. However, I've got the IS-3A supporting me from behind, the Conway's closing in, the rest of the team's closing in, so it's certainly not going to affect the result at this point in time. We're able to get a tracking shot into the T-54 lightweight, but it gets a shot in return, which puts us in a fairly precarious hit point position. We're not terribly confident of being able to bounce shots off it with the armour profile of this tank, but we have the big meaty Conway heading in with all its hit points and that massive main armament, and sends the last enemy tank back to the garage. So that's a victory for us on Berlin. Let's take a look at the results. So we've got to be happy with that, folks. We've come away with over 4,000 hit points of damage, and we're able to spot nearly 1,400 hit points, and ultimately seeing the demise of 2 enemy tanks. For our efforts, we've got a level 2 mastery badge, but crucially, we've come away with these 2 medals for these 2 sort of epic or battle heroes medals. One of which is Hi-Calibre. We all know if you do at least 1,000 hit points of damage and you account for at least 20% of the total hit point pool of the enemy team, you get the Hi-Calibre medal. But we needed 2 to knock over this particular personal campaign mission with honours, so we've also picked up the Confederate medal, and you get that for basically causing damage to at least 6 enemy tanks on the enemy team, but you're not necessarily responsible for killing them. This is a medal that you can achieve in team play sorts of environments where you might be running in with 2 or 3 tanks or as a platoon, and it's even though you're not necessarily causing the kill, you're still operating very effectively in a team environment, and this medal is sort of one of those rewards at the end of the day. We've also picked up a couple of smaller awards with the Spotter medal, the Bruiser for causing internal module damage, and of course the Fire for Effect medal. Looking at the team scores, I've had a couple of high scorers here, with the Shah Future 4, who was a bit of a wingman for us in the end game, but special mention to Gizmo Melb from G'day Clan in the ISU 152K, who made a very stoic defence of the city and bought us the time and the hit points necessary to come in and re-exert that map control, even though the poor bugger got left on his own quite early in the game. And if you have a replay that you'd like to see featured on World of Tanks with PR154, please reach out over Discord or one of the links below, and we'll do our best to sort you out. The sorts of replays we're chasing, in particular, if you've had a fantastic Tier 10 game, we'd love to feature that on the channel. But equally, if you've had a fantastic game at a lower tier, particularly where you've been bottom tiered and you're up against it all, but you've still managed to get a very good XP placement at the end of the ladder at the end of the game, well, we'd love to see them as well. In order to achieve those results, typically you need to be playing very strictly to the role of the tank, and so as a result they become quite helpful guides for how to play that tank. Of course, there's also personal campaign missions. If you manage to knock any of those over, please let us know. We'd love to contribute to a bit of a collection or a guide for how to help players complete those personal campaign missions as well. In the meantime, please, if you haven't done so already, please shoot us a like, a subscription, tell your friends. It all helps out the channel at the end of the day, and take care out there.